Do you know why people get divorced? You know why people get divorced, Alex. It's the loss of desire. It's the loss of sexual connection. I wrote an international best-selling book called Kosher Sex. I could not be more proud of it. I hope all of your viewers will buy it. It's about husbands finding erotic desire in their wives so they don't have to go to porn and all this filth. And if people, some couples, if they need the novelty items, I don't care what they are, if in order to keep the spark alive, so that monogamy does not become monotony. See, that's one of the reasons that my Christian brothers and sisters, evangelicals, real God-fearing Christians, not like you who hates Jews, bought the book in their millions and tens of millions because they understood that sex in marriage for religious people is not just for procreation, and for secular people, not just for recreation, that sex is holy. Are you aware of the fact, Alex Jones, that there isn't a single word in the Bible for sex other than knowledge, and Adam came to know his wife Eve? You're bringing up butt plugs and all this other disgusting stuff. I didn't discuss your pee-pee. I said that you disgraced, whatever you think about Michelle Obama, who are you to say that she's a man? Stop the misogyny. Why do you hate women so damn much? And then you defend Candace Owens, who's going after the first lady of France, saying that she has male genitalia. You guys have a sick obsession with people's genitals. And you tell me dancing with my... wait, no, you said you wouldn't interrupt me.
It's a good show. He does a good show. We have to give him that.
I mean, Michael Brooks always used to say Alex Jones is the most talented broadcaster of our generation.
He's unsurpassed. Yeah. Can I just say really quick, like I have watched a lot of his show, and it is a great show when he just talks about his life, like his stuff that happens in his personal life. It's like, it's the best show. He went on this long thing about how he went to a UFC fight with Joey Coco Diaz. And Joey Coco Diaz gave him a pot cookie or something, like a weed cookie. And Alex Jones just it hit him too hard, it hit a little too hard. And Joey Coco Diaz was laughing at him, and he couldn't get up to go to the bathroom and all this stuff. And it was great. It was great.
Yeah, I actually remember when Alex Jones, I think it was in his custody case, with his ex, that he made the claim in there, I believe, that he got high once a year, but only for the purpose of testing to see how much more potent it had gotten.
Yes, he talks about that all the time. He's almost like anti-weed now because he thinks it's too strong,
Yeah, and he did say, although it's funny because he did make that claim, but he also, when he went on the Jimmy Dore show, they were reminiscing about Jimmy spitting at him, and he said, "Well, you're one of the only two men." I think the phrase he even used was "I've tasted in my mouth" or something like that,
or "I've had in my mouth." I think it was.
It might have even been "I've had in my mouth," and the other one was Willie Nelson, right? Because he said he was passing, he was getting high with him, and he saw that there was a bunch of Willie spit that was left on the joint, but it was such an honor to intake it that that he just took it in as was.
I could see them being friends. I could kind of see them being bros, him and Willie. Two Texas bros. Why not?
Yeah, I just so that's one thing. The other thing about that clip, especially the first minute of it, in the end, the last part, he got aggressive and he started going on the offensive. And gotta say, Rabbi was making some good points there at the end. But before that, when he's just describing his book and all the millions of copies it sold, and how it's important that monogamy not become monotony, and and all that, all I could think was just I was just overwhelmed by the obvious this isn't necessarily gonna be true of every member of the clergy, but just the obvious holiness of that man. I mean, just rolling off of him, the gravitas and sense of sacred that you get when you hear him talk.
Yeah, just peddling his book shamelessly as well. I'm new to this. I knew about him, but I really didn't know the story that he wrote the book with his daughter, or like he has a store with his daughter, or an online store or something. What's the story there?
Okay, so we were going to save this, but
Yeah.
but I do actually have some extra audio video material for this.
I'm here at my daughter's store, world's first kosher sex store. It's gotten so much attention. It's been all over the media. And by the way, if I look the way I do, perspiring, and Tel Aviv has these amazing new electric scooters, and I take them everywhere, but it is so hot. But you get around, and it's amazing. So this is the store, and I'm so happy to see it because I've read so much about it. It was in the Washington Post 2 Sundays ago. It was on the cover of the Drudge Report. It's been absolutely everywhere. So Chana, I got to meet Christina, right? And this incredible denim shop. I'm showing some of the denim. Okay, I'm not sure these would fit me, to be perfectly honest.
Christina's got some sizing in the back.
It's great stuff. Christina, do you make it?
It's vintage and I rework it.
Okay, this is Christina. Hello, Christina. How are you? Great. You don't have to hide behind the curtain, unless you're like the Wizard of Oz.
I like to hide. She talks behind the
I guess you've been reading all my stuff about mystery.
Yeah.
All right.
So I
Yeah.
believe the kosher sex book is solo authored, but then his daughter was at some point later inspired to start a store, and he was promoting it. Although I don't. I have a lot of questions, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, for if anybody's just listening, it's one of those like boutique type stores that you kind of like see in like New York sometimes, that like has basically nothing in it, you know, and everything's like $500 kind of deal. So okay, that's where he hangs out. All right, cool.
Yeah. I mean, just the like. I mean, I assume that like the prayer and Talmud study take up like 19, 20 hours a day, but like, you know, he can like, shave a couple off on the side to take the electric scooter to promote the sex store. Yeah, this is awesome. This is, it's good. All faiths give rise to these fuckers. Like, this is the, it's like I used to watch. Do you ever watch the 700 Club back when?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever watched a full episode, but the vibe of it had a very QVC vibe to it, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, it's just very like I remember like the stuff where they'd be like fundraising, and at the same time they were fundraising, they would do this like remote like distance faith healing, and and I remember like Pat Robertson, his son Gordon Robinson, there was a black woman whose name I don't remember, that would like just be like scrunching up their eyes like this and clasping their hands, and Pat would say there's a woman in Ohio and she's having a horrible pain in her back or whatever, and the Lord is healing her now. And it was just always interesting. It's like, well, so God can tell you all that information, but he can't give you like a name and a phone number.
He works in very mysterious and kind of annoying ways, honestly.
Fair enough. Well, I did not say earlier, name is Ben Burgis. This is Give Them an Argument. We are joined by the great RM Brown, Arun Brown, I believe he likes to be called.
Thank you.
And Jake is going to be joining us later, our producer. But meanwhile, we do have a very talented graphic designer, J. Andrew World. And Andy, what's the eyewear choice?
Oh, it was the eclipse today. I had the full eclipse experience. Got to see it, and walked outside, and everything smelled like pot. So thank you, neighbors. And then as I'm walking around downtown, a homeless woman comes out of nowhere and starts screaming about the end of the world. It was like the perfect eclipse experience you'd want.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
And
That's
you
what I
actually
wanted.
and you actually got like a good like view, right?
Yeah. It was we got like 94% of the eclipse, I think it was, or something to that effect. But yeah, we got to see most of it covered. So it got a little dark here.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I didn't, I think there might have been a better one, might have gotten better, and I missed it, and I did grab a pair of glasses at one point and look up, but it was like 1% covered at that point.
You were just looking at the sun, basically.
Yeah, I was just staring at the sun as I do,
As you do, yeah.
Yes, just like Donald Trump without the glasses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've told you stop staring at the sun, and you keep doing it. You can't help yourself.
Yeah, I mean they say don't stare at the sun, but it seems fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You'll be okay.
Oh, so as I said, we don't discriminate between faiths, backgrounds, etc. And so as far as people who are intense believers in Christianity, I know one of them is friend of the show, Charles Kirk, and we actually have a clip of him also expressing some thoughts about religion.
And it's important to note that Haiti is legitimately infested with demonic voodoo. Can you talk about this, Blake?
Yeah, yes. I'm like weirdly more sympathetic to Haiti.
In the Western Hemisphere.
Say that again, Jack.
Well, so voodoo, it's really where Haiti is where voodoo comes from in the Western Hemisphere. So it's brought from a lot of much more ancient tribal African practices that were brought along, forcefully brought to the Caribbean. But it really was Haiti where voodoo made itself, planted its flag in the Western world, in the Western Hemisphere. You see this spread throughout the other islands. You see, these types of practices and a lot of like blending of West African traditions with Christianity and Catholicism. Again, Spanish, French empires, you get Catholicism there. And they come up with these very bizarre, very dark, demonic, occult practices that are going on, in many cases, completely subverting Christianity and Christian symbols for use in these practices. And so you'll have cases where the killing and the ritual ingestion of flesh, let's just say it, ingestion of flesh, is done as part of these rituals. In fact, during the slave revolt, or one of the early revolts going on back in 1804, one of the leaders of this was himself a shaman of sorts, a witchcraft shaman of sorts, and they were sacrifice animals, pass around the cup of blood for everyone to take part in, to kind of give them the blood rage, and then they would go off and start killing all of the plantation owners.
I mean, what's crazy with voodoo is it's very much it's a belief with where the supernatural has a lot of impact on your life. So they very much believe in the power of magic, that you can put curses on people, that you can cast spells on people. And, the famous voodoo doll is just sort of a fictional trope version of this. I don't know if they specifically do it that way, but the general idea that someone can put a curse on you, and there's all sorts of people who have magic. So there's witches everywhere. So there's a voodoo idea that like women can turn into these sort of like animals and like suck your blood at night, or there's like another cult where people can turn into dogs, and of course zombies. The word zombie comes from voodoo.
So zombieism is really from this entire culture.
Yeah,
this is where it comes.
And in their version of it, it's more like they can kind of enslave a person, like they can kind of kill you but control your body. And I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I think there's cases where the power of suggestion is so strong that like people have basically become zombies because they believe that they are a zombie, and it's so powerful on it. But the big picture here, of course, is there's all this trouble in Haiti yet again. If you're 30 years old, this is probably about the 8th or 9th time there's been some like, oh, massive crisis in Haiti, and the government's a mess, and there's gangs in the streets, and they're doing all of this stuff, and there's never any progress. And it circles back around to a discussion we've had on here before. What if like the big picture thought crime here is, should somebody colonize Haiti, basically?
No. Why would you want that?
There's really no reason to do it. I I think the only reason to do it is
colonize Greenland.
That would be a great idea.
Okay,
I'm fully in favor of that.
Tons of land.
All for it.
Okay,
uninhabited largely.
Literally,
you have Nook.
What if you said, like, China can colonize Haiti?
I think it would be terrific.
Interesting. Some interesting ideas there on the Chuck Kirk program.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the program, he says that he's talked to missionaries who've been to Haiti. I'm not really sure why, because I think it's like 80 or 90% Christian, but whatever. And they've told him about people with the demonic voodoo powers levitating, or he said turning into cats. But that I want to be fair about this. That was the one point where Charlie expressed a little bit of skepticism. He was like, well, I don't know cats.
I don't know about that. This is going
The dogs are okay, but not cats.
Yeah. Probably not, right? Like, okay, just gut check, it's like probably people aren't turning into cats. But yeah, it is kind of incredible. Like, I debated this guy in 2021.
That's right.
Less than 3 years ago. And he was just running through completely normal conservative talking points. And like now, Haiti's full of demonic voodoo powers and
demonic cats.
Sure, yeah. And it would maybe be, I guess I want to be fair. The banner, if you're listening to this in the podcast, the banner at the bottom of the show, like the Charlie Kirk show said, recolonize Haiti ? So it was, they were treating it, I guess, as an open question, but he did, he did say at the end, it would be a fantastic idea if China wanted to.
Yeah, with Jack Pasebic, there too, as one of the talking heads. Because I don't think that's very clear in that clip.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Ben, you're more historically literate than I am. I mean, if you didn't know much about the slave revolts, that's a pretty good place to start. What they were talking about, right? You pretty much got it now, right? Voodoo, cats, right? That's all you need to know, right?
Yeah,
we had Pascal on, and he did this great history of running down. I know, seriously, like everybody who's watching right now, whenever this episode's done, go back and find that episode where Pascal just goes through the history of what happened in Haiti, and it's phenomenal. You will learn a ton. I think I need to revisit it myself.
But I imagine he was just saying the exact same stuff.
Word for word.
Yeah. Well, he went through the blood ceremony, and it's like, it's seconded. But also, like, this is actually like cartoonishly evil. That these guys in 2024 are resuscitating this like 200-year-old slave owner fear-mongering about the Haitian Revolution. That like, this is, if you go back and listen to that episode that Andy was bringing up, or you listen to, like, if you want like a longer version, Mike Duncan had a really good podcast called Revolutions. They did a whole season about Haiti. I'd strongly recommend that. But like, honestly, this is like one of the most evil systems that's ever existed anywhere in the world. Like when the French colony of Saint-Domingue, that became Haiti, they had like the lifespan for like slaves who were imported to Haiti was like a few years, because tropical diseases and how dangerous the sugarcane harvesting was and the way they were doing it at the time. And yeah, I mean, it's very, I really think you can have a magic free explanation of why people would revolt against this system, given half a chance. And, the other thing that's like really cartoonishly evil about what Charlie and the gang are doing in that clip is that little implication that it's like, oh yeah, Haiti's all fucked up again, this is the zillionth time, and like the implication is that it's because of, all of the demonic voodoo turning into cats and stuff. Like,
Right.
It's like, guys, like if you actually, again, go back and, get the short version from Pascal, you can listen to Mike Duncan season. I know there's,
Well, that book, what's the book I'm thinking of? Is it Black Jacobins? I read it a million years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. CLR James, Black Jacobins, right? They, like it really is just unbelievable history that, they, like, and you look at the history of, Haiti's relationships with the rest of the world, and, like the US initially didn't recognize it for a long time because of fear that it would give slaves ideas in the American South. The like after their war, of independence, fight off Napoleon's attempt to retake it. Like eventually they agreed, for the sake of like peace with France, to pay an indemnity. So essentially they had to, it was, reparations in the opposite direction, that the descendants of slaves had to pay their former colonizers and slave owners for the lost property in the French Revolution. And if this all sounds like ancient history, this goes well into the 20th century. They were still paying off this indemnity. Even when the U.S. invaded and occupied Haiti in 1915, they didn't just forgive the debt; it was just transferred to an American bank. And yeah, so any guesses, by the way, when this was finally paid off?
1994.
Yeah. Not as bad as that, but yeah, 1947, right? So this is. So yeah, they were paying this off, and it took a major share of the Haitian GDP until 1947. And then like there's a whole 10 years of respite between then and the installation of Papa Doc Duvalier as the dictator in Haiti, with enthusiastic US backing for usual Cold War anti-communist reasons. Then it's Baby Doc wasn't overthrown until 1986, and this is just this absolutely unbelievably ghoulish and awful kind of death squad right-wing regime. And then 5 years, like, all right, so the uprising against Baby Doc is 1986. There's after that, they finally hold like a democratic election, right? First elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who I believe I remember hearing once that one of his slogans when he first ran for president is, who's going to raise the Haitian people from misery to poverty. And that's a fire-breathing populist platform in Haiti. And he was overthrown in 1991, and there are questions about that. It is, I think, a matter of public record that there are officers who were involved in the coup who had, certainly at least had a history of, being on the CIA payroll as like contacts or informants. It's unclear, how much American involvement there was in there, but like, Clinton actually brought him back, but then Aristide is overthrown a second time in 2004. By George W. Bush, who literally like had U.S. Marines escort him out of the country, and then claim he'd left voluntarily, and that's not what he said. And then you have 2017, which is when foreign troops finally leave the island, and in as recently as 2021. There are Miami-based people who assassinated Moise, the previous president of Haiti.
Oh yeah.
And it's, again, there are questions there about how much, direct U.S. involvement there is, but like it looks pretty bad. So, it's just like, yeah, most recent installment of the story, again, is 2021, right? So it's like, Haiti, all these problems. It's probably the culture, right?
Yeah,
that must be
just turned into cats more. Then we wouldn't have had all these overthrows.
All right. I thought they did turn into cats less. So all right.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm just pro cat.
God. Well, this is really upsetting because, as a fan of what's their show called? The Thought Crimes. It is disappointing that they would leave out historical context. This is I mean, now I got to rethink my fandom of their program.
Yeah, no,
they skipped some of that.
Yes. Yeah, I think they skipped all of that except there was a slave revolt, which I think they were blaming on demonic voodoo.
Yeah, drinking blood.
It would be awesome if they got Pascal on. Could you imagine? That would be fun. That would be a fun episode.
That
Not
would
for
be.
Pascal.
Yeah. No, I think extremely annoying for him, but fun for everybody else to watch. Yeah, no, it's you sit down to watch, Charlie and the boys have a reasonable discussion with the recolonize Haiti banner at the bottom of the screen, and then it turns out that like it's actually like inaccurate, like, or that there's like serious omissions in the historical record.
I can't believe it, and I'm pretty I'm not mad at them, but I'm disappointed. That's for sure. I mean, but I will say, and no offense to them, it's a little bit hard to take them seriously because they both look like retired child actors, Charlie Kirk and that other guy. So it's a little hard to be mad at them,
Hey guys,
it's hard to take them seriously. Hey,
for the podcast listeners, I just popped into the screen. I just got here, but I figured the Haiti knower of history has logged on because I thought I'd bolster up. We could screen. We could share a little more to see if they had some.
Okay, no, this might be unfair.
Yeah.
Right. We might be prejudging the discussion. It's going to get like. It's probably going to get like way less insane in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, give him a chance, Ben. You're so quick to judge. Yeah.
I want to mention, I feel like there's a little bit of a tension or wobble between Kirk and you're saying like the John Cryer looking guy on the right as the other failed child actor looking guy. But he's a little bit more, I think he's a little bit more rationalist and secular because he doesn't really seem to believe in the voodoo. Whereas I think, because it's Charlie's like, they're so backwards, they have voodoo, which I believe is a real thing, I think. Yes. And then the other guy's kind of more like, like there's been cases in which, the power of suggestion is so strong.
No, I'm pretty sure nobody else in the panel thinks it's the power of suggestion. I believe they think it's the power of Satan.
Yeah. Let's see.
First of all, I think part of the country is literally under a spiritual oppression. I talked to missionaries that have gone there, and they say they've seen the darkest stuff that a human being can see. In fact, I know people that went to Haiti passively as like agnostic atheists, and they came back searching for Jesus because they saw like legit demonic activity.
Whoa! Do they say any more?
Yeah, there was one guy who saw somebody who literally didn't sleep for 2 weeks. And would just literally run around and not sleep for 2 weeks, like ran through the whole island.
Case closed.
I know that if I saw someone that didn't sleep for a long time, I would immediately,
satanic.
I would immediately become Christian. I would call up the first, like, hey, I just saw someone who didn't sleep for two. I mean, I think he had to make.
That's kind of a weak one, honestly. It's like they have. It's like, I don't know. I mean, yes, if you'd ask me, like, is it physically possible to stay up for 2 weeks? I'd say probably not. But like, if you told me, like,
depends on how much cocaine you got, really.
There was a guy. Were you watching him for every minute of those 2 weeks?
Yeah, exactly. I think that guy might have been sneaking some naps in. I think he might have been. I think it might have been a trick.
A commenter said, Luke says, I was there for 2 weeks and it was so hot I probably didn't sleep at all. All right, well then that's a reasonable explanation.
That's okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, but he saw someone not. Yeah, I think he had to make up something really fast, and his improv skills failed him. It's like I saw someone jump 5 feet in the air and bleeding from their hand.
Natural type capacity. There are claims that people have seen like quasi levitation stuff.
There we go.
Like almost head spinning type stuff.
Okay, just pause.
Yeah,
Andrew
he's
says
kind
this
of
is very common.
prefacing it. He's qualifying a little bit. Quasi levitation. Is that like there was 1 foot still down? Like what's
they
like
got stoned and watched The Exorcist is what happened.
Yeah.
Or it's like
because it's quasi levitation. It's almost head spinning stuff. It's like he really, like Charlie really, like he wants to push this, but he doesn't seem to be willing to fully commit to it.
Yeah, he was kind of. Was he distracted? Was there another tab open while he was? I don't. Yeah, come on, Charlie. Let's focus. Here.
Yeah, the other guy really wanted. He looks. If we look at his face, he looks a little disappointed because he was like, "Oh, can you?" He was like, "Can you?" Like they clearly didn't have a meeting before because he was like, "Oh, that's really surprising. Can you elaborate?" And Charlie's like, "Fuck." I saw a guy jump rope four rotations before he hit the ground. Yeah, let's see if he has anything better.
Here's one that when Andrew was in Haiti, there were common stories about people turning into cats at night, which I don't know. They all knew someone that turned into cats. Again, I'm not sure about that. I haven't heard that. But
where's the certainty, Charlie?
Energy, or just also the stuff where you look in the Hollywood films where someone like looks possessed, right? Imagine like entire towns that look that way.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Where it's just
imagine if you went to like a particularly rough section of the United States where everybody's addicted to drugs or something like that. I'm sure I mean, again, they would probably actually say the same thing about like the inner cities or whatever, but it's just I don't know. It's like he's like, imagine somebody that just like looks like they're really strung out. Wow. That's like clearly demonic activity, but I am preempting it by saying that they would probably say the same thing if they saw if they went somewhere where like people were like addicted to fentanyl or something like that.
Charlie does seem like he's losing the guys a little bit on this. They do seem pretty disappointed in Charlie Kirk's thing here. He's like, imagine if he saw like in the Hollywood films. They're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? We work for this guy.
I can imagine. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
But it's also like, I think he is losing them a little bit, like because the woes seem pretty half-hearted. It's like, oh wow, yeah,
wow, Charlie, okay.
wow. I imagine like RM like
also they're not willing to like actually like interrogate him the way I really want here, which is like, wait, let's just slam the brakes on quasi levitation. What is quasi levitating? Like, are you actually levitating, but just a little bit? Like, are you like up on 1 foot, but your balance is better than it should be? Like break down what's quasi levitation.
Yeah, I was imagining like RM
Quasimodo is floating.
Or like, what do you guys went to like a conservative like after party after some convention? You're like, I saw the craziest shit, and then live on air, I'm like, what? And then you guys just can't produce anything. You're like, I saw somebody snorting coke, and I just have to be like, whoa.
There was a basketball court out back, and a guy hit 3 3-pointers in a row,
which is statistically
it's statistically basically impossible, and I'm convinced it was demonic. And I was pretty shaken, to say the least. We're checking to make sure our Turning Point USA checks are clearing on our laptops while he's talking about this.
Wow. All right, let's see if
they and then there's a lot of churches there too, and it's growing, but like Haitian voodoo culture is legit. Like 1 out of 3 people in Haiti participate, and they sacrifice animals, and they do like pagan blood rituals. So yeah,
it doesn't seem to have worked out for them.
No, I mean, look, show me a pagan culture that sustainably can survive. And
okay, pause.
There's a reason why the Aztecs are no longer around.
All right. want to break this down. That it's the pagan cultures can't sustainably survive. I mean, it's like I don't know, man. It seems like I mean, does pagan here just mean non-Christian, or like is there a more specific sense that he has in mind?
See, it seems like almost anything, yeah, non-Christian. He just mentioned India, so I'm guessing like what they would consider.
Okay, well that seems like a very long surviving culture. So now I'm
that was the one he was like, that was the one counter example, which I guess we'll see. But yeah, I mean yeah, this is for Jeb says I don't think religion caused the fall of the Aztec Empire. I think recolonize the Aztecs. You know, I think there's another reason. Yeah.
I want to re-decolonize the Aztecs, make Mexico City Tenochtitlan again.
Oh hell yeah!
Make it, restore the greatness of it with the pyramids and everything. But yeah,
Drunk Dalek says, yeah, this is just dumber repeating of shit that Pat Robertson said on air for decades, which maybe is why it's like half remembered. He's like remembering things he heard like in his childhood.
Yeah, I think I've heard about like quasi levitation. Like I don't remember whether there's full levitation, but like they were like.
I think somebody turned into a cat, but I'm not sure.
It was either Pat Robertson or Manimal he was watching.
Yeah, but like, yeah, why would it be like what's the connection supposed to be about the Aztecs and paganism? That like, if not for the paganism, they would have done a better job of fighting off the conquistadors. Like they would have just like had better technology if they worshipped Jesus.
That's a much better argument than I think they're making. I think it's a lot stronger. You're steel manning it a little too much, I think. But yeah, that's the best. No, that I think they're just like, well, it doesn't exist anymore, you know.
Yeah, I mean, okay. And like I don't know. I mean, it's the Byzantines don't exist anymore, right? They were, Ottomans conquered Constantinople. It's like that, like they were Christians. I don't understand.
Should we see what they say about India, which it's been around for a pretty long time, and just I think just became the most populous country. Let's see what they say about it.
Okay.
Well, that's a good point. Can India survive? We'll see. Or is India just on? It's is it exhausting the jet fuel of English colonial culture?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a thought crime.
I'm just asking. Was India great before it got colonized?
Yeah, but they have a caste system.
They have a terrible caste system.
I mean, but their caste system is what keeps them afloat.
What's crazy is what is at risk of destroying India?
Sorry.
Seems like there's differing thoughts on the caste system.
Yeah. Debate that one out, guys.
Yeah. I want to hear this debate.
Yeah.
So sorry. So take me through who, like, Charlie, I obviously know. Who's the rest of the panel here?
Then there's MAGA John Cryer. No.
Yeah.
Jack Pasebic's the guy at the other end.
Yeah, and then Hat Man, who God only knows who that guy is.
Okay, because Hat Man is the caste system fan.
Yes. He's pro-caste. Pro-caste.
Yeah, because like Charlie's like initial impulse when the caste system is brought up to be like, oh, we're like dunking on the bad pagan cultures, right? So
yeah.
So clearly, like, oh yeah, the caste system, that's very bad. But like, Hat Man's, like Hat Man, this is the one part he likes.
Yeah, he's caste curious. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're so clearly obsessed with hierarchies that obviously.
Yeah, why would they not all like the caste system? It's kind of I want to hear them go into this.
But yeah, I'm sure they're going to unpack it. But it does. Someone said it kind of sounds like stoned college freshmen, which is thrown out as an insult, maybe too much. But it does kind of remind me of like, kind of like budding college freshman racists who are stoned, and then they're not quite. Charlie's not quite sure how racist the group is. You know what I mean? So he's like, and they're like, fucking racist, which is bad, right? And then you're like, but what if it was kind of good? Yeah. It's a thought crime. It's a thought crime.
Yeah, they got one of the most toxic intellectual imports from the West, which is affirmative action, and they do it by caste, and it's a colossal disaster. They're one of the only countries that does affirmative action that is as stupid and bizarre as the way we do it in America, where if you're like in one of the 4 kind of normal castes, you're discriminated against systemically, and instead it's the like tribes and other backward castes, I think is what they called them.
Yeah, but that's the best management for the lifestyle of what you guys are talking about, where it's like essentially a free-for-all society that exists, which is, I mean, that's why that it's basically plugging the dam on that allows that to exist.
I
So I
think
want
that
to go back to how they're running on the fumes of British colonialism. Like, what's the idea here? That like the British were like that like the British gave them like a century and change of Christian values, and that's like
that's exactly it. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So they're
I mean,
they-
it's the
they're-
same.
They've got just enough of residual Christianity from Britain that the
Yeah.
paganism hasn't destroyed them yet.
Yeah, I mean, they were basically doing the same thing with Haiti. They're saying the same thing. I think the subtext is the same. Yeah.
But what confuses me about their argument is that the British system is known for having like a rigid class system, and which is not that different in some respects to the caste system. So
well, they're having a spirited debate. Hat Guy is making really, really strong points about a free-for-all society, which I'm sure if we asked Hat Man to define, he would have a really good description of what a free. He's basically just saying that like anything goes there, so they need structure. So even though it's a bad structure, it's a good structure. But the other guy, MAGA John Cryer, was trying to critique their caste system. So they're going in a few different directions. It's getting fascinating.
I think MAGA John Cryer is the one who is most dedicated to just keeping the conversation at a normie conservative level. Like remember he was the he was the power of suggestion guy, right? So that was like the most clear dissenting vote on like magic is real, and he was like, okay, we're talking about caste stuff. Like he's not going to endorse the caste system like Hat Guy. So he's like, all right, wait, how can I like squeeze just like a normal mediocre conservative point out of this? Like, yeah, they're trying to do affirmative action now to undo the caste stuff, and that's bad. We all hate affirmative action, right, guys? And yeah, no, sorry, we're way over that. Now we're talking about turning into cats and how the caste system is actually good.
If I had like 100 intelligent points to award to this group, and it's a finite number, I might give that guy like 80 to be if I had to, and then give the rest assign the rest based on the 20 points left. Not saying he's a genius, but I think he's actually operating on a different level where he's trying to make their crazy points into something more normal and thought out, and he's not really doing a good job. I am curious how he's going to respond to Hat Man. I know that we're probably gonna we can't watch too much more, but this debate is just heating up.
It's getting intense.
I have a heart for the people of Haiti, and I visited the Caribbean.
He just stopped it. Oh boy! All right, that's disappointing.
Fair amount. You don't have to live like that. I mean, there are islands that enter the second world, and they're not totally anarchy, and they're poor, but they have like resorts and Barbados, for example, Turks and Caicos,
Dominican Republic,
Grand Cayman.
Dominican Republic is a lot like Haiti, same island, and it is
Santo Domingo's,
literally, I think, more than 15 times richer than Haiti. Now, I do want to push back on one thing, which is Andrew and others are pointing out, they revolted too early, and I will say, what we really need to blame here, and it's important to give the right blame to these people because they're to blame for a lot of things, is the French. French are bad. They're the ones
the French and the Germans
they gave
perfectly fine antagonists in all things.
Yes, exactly. And they gave us all this adultery stuff that's causing all the problems allegedly that's in the royal family. And they gave us Haiti. And the reason I say they gave us Haiti is Haiti, as far as we get all of our horror porn about slavery in the US before the Civil War, that 12 years of slave stuff, whipping people. Like Haiti, run by the French, was not like the antebellum South. Haiti was run like a Nazi death camp. It was sugar plantations, and sugar plantations in the 1700s were so terrible that.
So it sounds like Haiti actually really underwent a lot of really, really terrible shit. And the only way I can get my crew on board is to say, oh, it's because it's the French who did it and we hate the French.
Right.
But...
yeah. He is doing a real roundabout here. Those decadent French.
He's like really trying to think, it's like, okay, I don't want to end this segment on a note of us all agreeing that, slavery in Haiti was fine. Colonization, enslavement of Haiti, is totally okay. So it's like, I want to get through to these guys, but it's like, look, he's a very talented communicator. You have to know your audience and, think about how you're going to be able to connect to them and where their starting point is. Like, okay, what can we do? What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
We all hate French people.
The reason we don't like them is because they have affairs with the British monarchy, which is it's very upsetting. But
yeah, no, those French people with their cheeses and adultery and existentialism and snooty accents, right? Like this is like we can all get on board with that, right? It's the goddamn frogs. And look, I'm not like some ridiculous radical leftist who's going to say that like slavery in the American South was bad. Like I'm that would be extreme, right? But I'm going to chart the moderate course here and say like what the French did, that was pretty bad.
You could not have replacement level population. It was constant decrease.
Jeez.
So what you do is you'd constantly ship in slaves from Africa. It was estimated that a field hand in a Haitian sugar plantation had a life expectancy of about 4 years, like from when they start working in there. And so that is why they revolted and killed everybody. It wasn't merely, we want to be free. It was straight up, if we don't do this, odds are all of us will be dead in 5 years because of how horrifying this is. And so I do want to give that concession that Haiti is super messed up. But much of this is downstream of when you have a catastrophically horrible way of running your country, such as anything set up by the French. These are the end results you get. And we still feel the ramifications 200 years later. And so we can even draw the comparison there between Haiti and Britain, where Britain has an orderly emancipation process for its colonies and the slaves in those colonies. And the result is that anything that's still a British colony today is pretty good. Any place that was a British colony is doing a lot better than anywhere that was a French colony. What are the French colonies? Niger, other parts of West Africa, Ivory Coast, torn by civil war frequently, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. And then it's like British colonies, Hong Kong,
India,
Barbados, Gibraltar.
Barbados is amazing. George Washington went down to Barbados.
He did.
That's your fun fact of the day.
And that's also where
amazing
Alexander
point
Hamilton
by
was
Charlie
from, right?
there.
It might have been Hamilton. One of them went all the way down to Barbados.
Well, Hamilton, I believe, was born there, and then he moved.
Oh man, this guy is just running knowledge circles around Charlie Kirk because I think he said, "Oh, I think Alexander Hamilton also went to Barbados," and then Charlie Kirk, if anybody missed it, just said, "Oh, it might have been Hamilton." He's like, "Oh, sorry, actually that might have been Hamilton," and then now he's saying Hamilton was born there, and he, this guy, he seems like one of those libertarians that actually reads a lot of stuff, and then
it sounds like he's trying to get on record saying that you know what I mean, like that the slave system in Haiti was bad, but and then he has to qualify it a bunch.
Like he has in that room, right? It's like you have to like really build up to slavery was bad, right? Right. Like, so he was easing into it, right? It's French are very bad, whatever. But like, yeah, he doesn't want to like this is a guy who has just about enough of a shred of whatever it is left that like he's like, yeah, I don't really want to do a whole hour of like just pure racism. Like,
right.
I want to like put a little note of moderation in there that it's like, yeah, I mean, for the record, I guess slavery wasn't the best.
Yeah. Charlie, I totally agree. Those cats are demonic, and we can all agree on that. However, the slave system, it's kind of bad, right, guys? Come on.
He was like he was thinking about his like next job application, and he was
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I don't. Yeah. Well, we will look into MAGA John Cryer. Maybe one day we'll even.
Actually, its name is Tyler Boyer.
What is his?
I wanted
do you
to
know what- Yeah. Okay. Yes, Ben.
Oh, I just want to say also that it's entirely possible that Charlie's thing about people turning into cats, that where he was remembering that from was a 1995 episode of the X-Files, Fresh Bones, which does in fact have a bunch of voodoo stuff in it. It includes somebody turning into a cat. So,
or maybe he was thinking of the musical Cats. He could have gotten mixed up with that, But I would love to see like a man on the street thing with Charlie, where he goes to Haiti and he just has a microphone and he's just chasing cats around. That would be good. That would be a good thought crime segment.
I saw you walking around just 2 minutes ago, dude. Now you're a cat. How do you explain it? But Charlie,
explain yourself.
He's like, the guy's like, actually, slavery was bad, and he's like, I have a fun Snapple fact for you that has nothing to do with that because I don't want to.
And then he doesn't quite remember the Snapple fact.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I think Alexander Hamilton was he the one? He got that. Yeah, actually, I think he was born there, Charlie. Awesome. I love it. Okay.
Great segment.
We are going to bring on Jay in just a moment to talk about his book, Be the Revolution, which we may even have a graphic of. But in any case, before that, just want, there you go. There's the book. Before that, I do just want to plug starting on May 12th, we're going to do round 2 of the Capital class. So going to start off with the chapter 1 and the prefaces on Sunday, May 12th. And that's going to be 1 to 3 EST on Sundays for however long that takes. We did volume 1 a while ago. It was a lot of fun. We're going to go back through and go through all 3 this time. So again, go over if you want to sign up for that, patreon.com/Ben Burgis. But really looking forward to doing that again. With that, we are also, by the way, I did the documentary that aired last night that I was on, the XCLD on MSNBC, that does not seem to have hit YouTube just yet. So that's why we haven't mentioned it tonight. But I know people were wondering about that. We will have those clips for you very soon. But meanwhile, RM, thank you so much. Really appreciate it as always, brother. And with that, we are going to bring on Jay.
What's up, Ben?
How are you doing?
Good, brother.
Good. That's so you sent me a few clips that I think might be fun to start out with one of them. So here we go.
Demons for mansion.
We are Demons for Mansion. We're here just because we're so excited. The man is here. He was here. He was in that building. We saw him. We were almost close enough to touch him. In the middle of a climate apocalypse, he got a pipeline into one of the biggest climate bills, the biggest climate bill in history. Yes! Mountain Valley Pipeline! Chuck Schumer deal! To have more fossil fuel extraction! Amazing! What is something to say? Demons for Mansion. Follow us on Twitter. Demons for Mansion.
Yeah. So
if I hate,
give me some context there.
All right. So I was at the Global Clean Energy Action Forum in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, which was sort of the, it was basically all of the fossil fuel companies that wanted to come and suckle at the IRA money tit and get that big IRA money. So a lot of like false solutions, like, you know, carbon capture, rebranding frack gas as blue hydrogen. But I was there to direct and produce a mini documentary for a climate foundation. We found out the night before that Joe Manchin was a keynote speaker at the clean energy conference, where you actually have engineers from all over the world coming to discuss like some of these technical climate solutions. So it kind of spun off of an idea that I'd been workshopping with some of the yes men, where we had an idea to do something much more ambitious involving the Levian Church of Satan. But I called Ivan and was like, look, Joe Manchin's here. There's Secret Service. We can't do much, but I think we could go to Spirit Halloween and smuggle in some masks. Also, for context, it was the Mountain Valley Pipeline they were pushing through, as that basically the Chuck Schumer deal was. Joe Manchin refused to sign the IRA unless they guaranteed to greenlight the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So I had been working with Dallas Goldtooth and the late great Joy Braun, who had also done some actions in Washington the day before. We followed that up with this action, which completely caught Secret Service and everyone with their pants down. I mean, we have like, you know, like the energy minister of Ukraine and all these people never saw it coming. And so they at least temporarily canceled that Chuck Schumer deal within a day or two. Of course, they shoved it through in the Defense Authorization Act about 9 months later, but at least temporarily we were able to kill that deal.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I think this maybe gives people a little bit of a sense of, you know, who you are and what you do. And this is going to connect to the book. And even though I did want to focus tonight on one like pretty specific part of the book, you know, I think it would be good if you just kind of, you know, like gave us a general sense of what you're doing with the you know, the book, like, you know, like what you're, you know, because like I think people sort of see, you know, the title, Be the Revolution, How Occupy Wall Street and the Bernie Sanders Movement Reshaped American Politics, and, you know, might think this sounds like a few different sort of retrospectives, you know, that have been that, you know, that people may have seen or heard of about, you know, about these events. But I think part of what you're adding here is your personal experience with, you know, with these movements. So I mean, you want to just kind of start us off on that?
Sure. So yeah, it is generally meant to be a theory of change. One of the premises is that the young people who are coming up and, you know, who are obviously, you know, fighting for the present and the future, fighting for the people of Gaza, fighting for climate, fighting, you know, against Cop City. Really, like, this history is really important, in my opinion. And it is a firsthand account because, you know, most of these books tend to be very boring. And so I did take sort of a gonzo Hunter S. Thompson approach. But really, there are a few pieces, I think, in the kind of popular mythos that are really important. One being, most people assume Occupy failed. Most people also assume that, you know, Bernie Sanders kind of emerged from the free market because he appealed to unrealistic millennials. And that's mostly what history is going to record. And it's actually fundamentally untrue because, number one, for not everybody, but for a lot of us, Occupy never ended. It was an idea and a movement. The occupation was a tactic, but it branched off in all these incredible directions, like public banking, the fight for 15, and labor, and a lot of cool stuff. But really specifically, in the left, people that came out of this network knew that Clinton was going to be the inevitable nominee, and this was going to be a continuation of the warmongering and corporate neoliberalism, and there needed to be an answer. So Occupy activated the National Occupy Network, or what was left of it, which became the 99 events for the 99% before Bernie didn't want to run. He had no intention of running. He didn't want to run. He was pushed to run. And this, to me, is really fundamental, because we tend to look at candidates like our favorite brand, or, it's a very consumerist frame. But for those of us, Bernie was a tactic, and he was bird dog for like a year and a half around the country. And a lot of these groups became the Bernie affinity groups, the local affinity groups. So I'm really differentiating the Bernie campaign from the movement. We're very, very different things. So that's important. It's important that people kind of shift the gestalt to look at candidates as tactics and not as like somebody I like, which is irrelevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you say, Bernie himself didn't really want to run originally. Seemed like for a long time he was holding out hope. As funny as this is to think about, given everything that happened in 2020, that like Elizabeth Warren would be the anti-Hillary Clinton candidate. And when he did, he did run. I mean, I always think about the video of him declaring in 2015 to like 10 reporters from with like, he has like literally like a speech on like a piece of paper that's like folded up in his jacket, and he like comes out. It's like, seems like he's on his lunch break or something. It's like, I don't have a tremendous amount of time to answer questions, and he, and so it's like, he clearly didn't think it was going to be anything, right? Like until a little while into it. So, it seems like part of the perspective you're giving here is about, organizers who did have some vision for what this could be, and were, encouraging him to, to run because of that. And I know you also have a, perspective. I haven't read the whole book yet. I've read parts of it, but I know I also went to your book launch, your book event in Los Angeles. So, I have some idea. I know you also have a perspective on kind of what happened, right? Like what went wrong, since in 2016, he came, he came closer than anybody thought, he was going to in 2016. He won 22 states and came into to 2020 looking really, really good, right? So I mean, from your perspective, from what you saw, from what you've learned about this, and from your thinking about it over the years since then, about how this ties into your views on how movements or campaigns can succeed or fail, and why, right? Like what do you think went wrong in 2020?
It's a huge question. There's a big chapter that breaks that down, and partly one of the things that compelled me to write this is, maybe if we had an honest autopsy in 2016, we wouldn't have repeated quite a lot of the mistakes. And and I have taken some flack from the emerging progressive consultant class, but part of it is I identify there is a consultant class, and I do believe that there was a disconnect between the philosophy of the campaign and the organizing theory of the campaign itself, and those who were basically handed the keys. There were a few people like Jeff Weaver, for instance, who, was the campaign manager in 2016. When I don't know if you remember this, but when they tried to launch Our Revolution, everybody quit because Jeff was involved, and also I talk about in the book how, on the eve of the convention in 2016, when we had been promised a floor fight, and there were some really serious people, organizers, who had been fighting at the platform committee, preparing for floor fight tactics. Meanwhile, Weaver was having craft beers with Robbie Mook in Vermont, plotting our demise. And so, some of those people were given the keys, and then the people they brought in were, kind of old school union organizers. And my hope is that people don't take away that it's any one person's fault, but it was really there was a disconnect of ideas, because these people kind of came from a union background where they're very used to like kind of top down organizing. And then you had a campaign that proposed to have the ethos be from the bottom up. And so what ended up happening was a lot of grassroots organizers were literally iced out of the campaign, denied access, and it was, people tried to speak up, but we were also caught in between, not wanting to give the opposition ammunition that we knew they were going to hurt Bernie with, because Bernie was the presumptive fundraiser. He had an enormous fundraising machine. He had out fundraised Obama's general election in the primary. And he was the first candidate in the history of American politics to win the first 3 primaries. And arguably, there had never been in history a time when the real left was really on the cusp of taking executive power. This is enormously huge opportunity. And because there was also, I think it's important to note that I believe what some of us noted, Charles Lenchner came to me, and I think it was like July of 2019, and was like, they have some bad ideas. One of them being that they could abandon traditional relational politicking, abandon like just normal what you do to run campaigns. They believed if we can contact enough people who were previously undeclared or uncommitted in the electoral process, then we're going to have enough to win. And that did not prove to work out in states like South Carolina, where there are certain things you got to do to win in South Carolina. And then I think also Bernie never took the gloves off. And again, in South Carolina primary races, that was really the definitive moment. Plus, there's external factors where the establishment had a never Bernie movement. You have Neera Tanden and Pete Buttigieg meeting with oligarchs in cocktail parties, strategizing for a year what to do if these, the barbarians are at the gate. What do we do? The socialists have come. And if you remember, like Chris Matthews, drawing allusions to the Maginot Line, and like he's like, oh my God, it's just like when Hitler was reaching, it's like,
you remember when Chris Matthews said that that like he said something about how like Bernie was like cheering for the commies in the Cold War, and if they'd won, there would have been there would have been executions in Central Park. Like I think he said that after Nevada.
Yes, exactly. But this is really for them an existential threat, because small dollar donations from ordinary people and ordinary people building power threatens their entire ecosystem of like obscene amounts of money and ad buys. And it's like they have an ecosystem and they're not worried. They don't care what happens because they're always going to be able to feed themselves. Like there's no shortage of money because their ecosystem is raising money from wealthy donors. That's it. Like that's kind of it. So they don't want to disrupt this. So this was an existential threat. And when it came to what I call Bloody Sunday, I'm not the only one to call it, but the Super Tuesday, when I believe it was Obama who had whipped the other candidates to drop out and fall behind Biden, there just wasn't a plan to counter that. And so at that point, then COVID happened and there was nothing to be done. But really, it kind of talks about that, and the need also to make sure that if you are going to do one of these insurgent campaigns, to make sure that it is aligned with the principles, and that the people that you're handing the keys to aren't solely a part of that that kind of old apparatus.
Yeah. So one thing, you kind of, I asked you a very big question. You brought up a bunch of different thoughts about that, but the one thing that's very clear is that last part, about the centrist candidates, consolidating at the end just before COVID essentially canceled the primary. And, it always seemed to me that they basically had, learned their lesson from Trump winning in 2016, that they had that the Republican establishment never consolidated. So you had you had all of these other Republican candidates who are kind of still tripping over each other, getting in each other's way, until Trump could sort of slowly grind his plurality into a majority, and they didn't want that to happen. With Bernie, and of course, I do think they're much more like afraid of that outcome. Whereas like, I think a lot of even establishment Republicans who might have expressed like aesthetic horror at Trump didn't really didn't really mind that much. But there is, this does take us into the sort of mirror world aspect of Trumpism that you do talk about in the book. Like even what you were mentioning just now about the small dollar fundraising models. That's that is actually how some of the craziest right-wing Republicans in Congress also operate, and how some of these people have actually achieved, some of these like Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of people have achieved this degree of independence that lets them cause chaos for their own leadership all the time, because they are actually they have actually replicated some of that same small dollar fundraising model, so they don't have to worry about being frozen out if they act crazy and piss off their own leadership. And this is something, so in the chapter in your book where you talk, I think it's called like The Worst Storm Ever, where you talk about QAnon and Trump and what you think of as neo-fascism. You say that that like a lot of mainstream media and centrist commentary sort of tried to equate these things, that the Bernie movement was like Trumpism, because they're both like populist, whatever that means, diversions from the status quo. And you do say that beyond just sort of being a cheap smear, right, that there actually is something there in the sense that that kind of right-wing pseudo-populism does feed off a lot of the same dissatisfactions. And so if you wanted to kind of start by speaking to that could maybe get us into some of what you lay out in that chapter.
Yeah, well, I wrote that chapter because I was part of a group of kind of citizen journalists who mapped out the QAnon network. What were their tactics? How did it go from inception to launch? And it's way scarier than people realize. And you have some very, very scary people who get involved. But to kind of speak to what you're saying, it's also that and I actually, to be more specific, I'd say neo-fascism, not fascism. I think it's an important distinction to distinguish from neo-fascism and classical fascism, because it's close, but it's a different thing. But traditionally, what the right-wing authoritarian movements do is they capitalize off of left-wing innovation, left-wing populist innovations, going all the way back to the French Revolutionary War, the Bolsheviks. What ends up happening a lot of times is leftist populist movements will gain ground, create sort of a cultural revolution or an actual revolution, and then I think leftists, because we spend so much time railing against power, we actually don't like power, therefore we rarely build it. Whereas right-wing centrists, neoliberals, and right-wing authoritarians, that's the whole end game, is power. So they will then look for any way to do that. QAnon was an example of using some decentralized hybrid of centralized and decentralized tactics to mobilize people around these conspiracy theories, to mobilize voter groups. It was easy for us to get painted, because in 2020 and in 2016, a populist was going to win. Period. So in times of income inequality, it usually goes FDR or Hitler, Mussolini. Okay. And it's also a cautionary tale to show that the insurrection and Trump was the logical conclusion of the Democratic Party stifling healthy populist movements, which they could have they could be running the table if they embraced it. It's kind of like when the record companies fought Napster. It's like, you want to go to a Tower Records, it doesn't exist anymore. It threatened the whole model. So instead of the party embracing this, and I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a liberal, just to be clear. But because they fought it, we're bound to get Trump, because the populace was always going to win. And it's especially relevant now because as the Democratic establishment continues to ignore the left as we make very valid claims about genocide and about the climate apocalypse that's coming and the failed leadership, you're again we're sleepwalking into another Trump presidency, which if you're following the Project 2025, I mean, you know, it's not good.
Oh, yeah, well, tell me about that. The Project 2025.
Oh yeah. So if anyone hasn't been following, you know, they're in the book. I also actually in that chapter on QAnon talk about the sort of Koch brothers playbook, and I'm trying to juxtapose how they approach politics and how we do, and that there are groups like the People for Bernie who launched the Occupy Network who were thinking strategically. Meanwhile, I mean, it's just a ragtag group. You don't have to have $1 billion organization or a think tank behind you. It actually, the book shows time and time again how one or small groups were able to actually really change the system. And I break down those groups. But in this case, you have groups like the Koch funded Heritage Network. These are the people who they're basically the think tank who was behind the climate denial machine. They basically helped wage war on objective climate science. And I kind of break down like what their playbook is, which is to find fringe scientists. So if 99 scientists say climate change is real, it's caused by humans and using fossil fuels and factory farming, et cetera, they'll find the one scientist who says that that's not true, and then they'll put them on their network of right-wing talk radio, and you know, the idiots like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, the show, basically they're paid shills, and then they will create fake grassroots astroturf organizations, and all of this is to give some idea that the science is untrustworthy. Now, all of this war on science created also the conditions that QAnon arose out of, and now you're having, it's just this terrible Venn diagram of flat earthers and conspiracy theories, and it's just horrible. But and
also people like something that, like, one of the most interesting things that comes out in the chapter is that you actually know like one or two of the people who seem to have been like very involved in QAnon, like when like and it's a little unclear, right? You know, because it's not like there's a public, you know, org chart, but
there actually is. There actually is. If you Jim Stewartson, I mean, I don't want to say how much of his work is like journalistically accurate. I'm not giving a blank endorsement of him, but if you go look at Jim Stewartson and Medium, there are some infographics that show the exact who, and it kind of shows this like terrible Venn diagram of who did what when. So there actually is a map if you want to look at it. But yeah, like I did know a few people who were persons of interest in the early days of QAnon, and then later a person who went on to be another person of interest in that whole Stop the Steal and in the January 6th intrigue. They reached out to me before the insurrection because I'm good at mobilizing people to shut down banks and state capitol buildings and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a cautionary tale, but I think it's one that has been overlooked. I think it's one that we're really underestimating.
Yeah. So like one of the people you mentioned in the chapter is somebody who I think you said you knew from Occupy, but also from like sort of spirituality and meditation sort of context.
Yeah, there was a person that I met at Occupy Los Angeles, and then after we discovered we were both into meditation, so we helped launch this global meditation initiative in 2012, and you know, we'd worked together a lot. But then I lost touch with her, and then I had journalists reaching out to me asking if I knew this person and her, you know, and I said yes, if I worked with her a lot, and then I became aware her involvement in, by her own admission and her own emails and tweets. She was called White Queen or Snow Queen or something like that. But basically, it was a basically QAnon was a LARP, a live action role play that was co-opted. It was a LARP. QAnon was a LARP, and then 23 million people ended up believing that it was real. And so I kind of take you through how that was all organized. But I also wanted to get back to Project 2025,
yeah, sure, please.
Which is a 1,000-page manifesto written by the Heritage Foundation and a bunch of other, sort of right-wing Bond villains. And people need to take a look at this, because where the Democrats seem to, it seems to be, people think it's House of Cards, but it's there's a guy who runs, a guy named Alex Lawson, who says, like, it's never House of Cards, it's always Veep. Right. So, but with the right wingers, with people like Grover Norquist, they're fucking planners. Like, these people are highly strategic. You have groups like ALEC and this Dark Money, and they sit down in war rooms and they plan a long game. So basically, in like 2013, they waged war on any Republican who mentioned climate change is real was going to get a primary challenge. Like, even McCain, if you remember, had a climate platform, and they had plans for taking over the judgeships. And like, these are long-term strategic thinkers. And if you read this document, I haven't read the whole thing, but from what I have read, it's not good. And they have a plan for basically,
for example.
Yeah. Are you asking me for example?
Yeah. Like you give me some examples, make this a little bit more concrete. Like what kind of things are you talking about?
Yeah. So very concretely, not all this is going to be a surprise, but really they're calling for the dismantling of anything administrative. So EPA, FDA, FEMA, anything that regulates industries that protect poor people is over. Okay. They're definitely talking about expanding unitary executive theory, which basically is the idea that the presidency should be a monarchy. It's like, it is. Mm-hmm. It is removing power from the other branches of government, giving sole power, unchecked power to it kind of harkens back to Reagan. Most of those gains were made by Cheney and Bush to wildly expand executive power. So they want to complete the job. Very clearly, they're coming for the leftists. They're coming for the leftists. It is straight up McCarthyism, but realize there's a backing of quite a number of paramilitary groups, but they've said they're coming for the leftists. They're going to eliminate any, and of course, in their version, they think Democrats are leftists. Right. You know what I mean? Which I think a lot of us take quite a lot of offense to. But criminalizing transgenderism, equating it to pornography, anything relating to gender is going to be equated to pornography. The immigration rules. So this is 1,000 pages. Anything, punishing corporations for DEI. So, you can look at it yourself. There's a 1,000-page document. You can download the PDF and, check it out yourself. But
so I guess this does take us to part of what I was curious about the, analysis in that chapter that, you kind of, earlier you used the phrase, neo-fascism, and I wanted to dig into this a little bit because, like, everything you're saying, right? Like from like the Project 2025 stuff, it's obviously like all really like horrifically bad, right? But like it does seem to be very continuous with the sort of thing that you would get from like more superficially, normal Republicans in the past, right? That this is that the unitary executive theory, as you said, right, was a big deal in the second Bush administration. Dick Cheney's a big believer in that. I mean, in a certain sense, that's what part of the Nixon defense was even about, right? When Nixon says, if the president does it, it's not illegal, and really the kind of like the authoritarianism that is certainly is certainly present, no doubt about it, in the Trump years. I mean, I think that I think the paramilitary organizations that you mentioned, to my mind, are kind of the least of it, because those tend to be extremely small, right? It's and not really that that bold about like oftentimes there seems to be more bark than bite in those organizations. But if to my mind, like the scariest thing that Trump ever did as president, as far as things like that go, is what you mentioned at one point in the chapter, right? Which was during the George Floyd protests, when he literally like sent the Department of Homeland Security out to like pull people,
in
like
white vans, and like unmarked vans pulling activists off the street, and I think like a lot of liberals will engage in this on a very surface level because nobody's coming for them. But people like me, like that shut down banks, with celebrities, like I am nervous because people like me that are doing like, and there's a lot of people doing amazing, really powerful on the ground organizing. I am, not the greatest or the least of it. I just, honestly, like the people who are doing really like frontline, putting their bodies on the line work, a lot of us are very concerned because the whole frame of it, like I despise Joe Biden. I despise the genocide. I think everybody should rail against it as hard as possible. I also think we shouldn't at the same point lose the plot when there are certain factions that are saying that Trump would be better. Like I've heard people say Trump would be better, when for me, it's like, it's really not about who I like or want. It's who do I want to fight? We're going to have to fight either way. We're going to have to fight if we want anything. Power concedes nothing without a demand. We're going to have to rip it from who's ever, even if it's the Democrats, we know that we have to rip it from their lifeless claws. I mean that as a metaphor, by the way. I mean that like they're going to hold on to their power so much that it's going to take a lot of effort to do that. But the point is like if I have to choose, who I would rather organize against, it's very easy decision for me, because we actually feed into their narrative. The more we actually organize and show up, put our bodies on the line, disrupt things, we feed into the neo-fascist narrative, and we become the focus of the conversation and it becomes a justification for more draconian authoritarianism.
Yeah. So I mean, I often think that when people have this argument, like, I don't know if you saw, there was a big article in the New Yorker like a week or two ago that was about the sort of like, is Trump a fascist debate, because there's this book that just came out about that of essays, people arguing about that. And it often feels to me like that debate is like really a proxy for like a few other things that people might actually be arguing about. So so one of them is what you just said, right? Like how does it matter, right, if if Trump is president or Biden is president, or like, as opposed to people who would say, oh, they're all the same, or maybe even people who've really gone off the deep end and think that Trump would be better, right? Which you got people with very selective memories have somehow think that he's like an anti-war candidate, even though as president
more bombs. He dropped like record amounts of bombs in Afghanistan. I don't know how anyone could possibly, and he's like the biggest BB stan. I mean, and he's gonna still use that to hit. He's still gonna weaponize that as well, even though if Trump were in office, he would definitely be doing it. Although it's as Peter Dow said, it's not the best. It's like Trump would be as bad a genocider isn't the flex you think it is. I mean, I
yeah. It's not
like, I
gonna.
agree.
It's not
You
really
know?
gonna inspire people to
No.
go out and it's like how these crimes against humanity that we're doing right now. We'd still be doing them if it was the other guy. So don't get too excited about this. Like that's not as election messaging, right? That's probably not going to
No, it's not going to work.
And I certainly think that I mean, look, I think that there is. I think that it's very, very possible that that Biden, is shooting himself in the foot by doing this, right? That he's gonna that it's obviously the primary reason that it's bad is that these like real serious crimes against humanity are happening. But I think it is also entirely possible that it loses Biden the election.
I think it's inevitable.
That I mean, it seems like there was just a vote in. They just had the primary in Wisconsin, where the uncommitted vote in Wisconsin was well over twice the margin of victory that Biden won by in 2020, and which is a little bit greater than the margin of victory that Trump won by in 2016. And this is even after, I think the Democrats tried to tell themselves for a little while after the primary in Michigan that, we have a messaging problem, right? We need to,
which time?
This year, right? That
Okay.
this is like that after the big uncommitted vote in Michigan, which again, like blew way, way, way past what Biden won Michigan by in 2020. I think that the Democrats convinced themselves that this was a messaging issue, that they just need to like talk differently about Gaza. And so they did some rhetorical adjustment, but it turned out that, the genocide itself is still horrifying, even if the messaging that goes with the genocide is different.
Did you hear Nancy Pelosi was like, you're playing into Putin's talking points. Putin wants to. It's like, bro, like,
yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, I think that's. I think
they're live streaming the genocide in front. Like we can see, like,
yeah, it's not going to work, right?
Dead babies we can really like see,
Yeah, no, totally, right. So it's like, so there's one. So yeah, I think that it's. I mean, God knows, right? Maybe Biden will somehow pull it off, but like right now, it looks very, very bad, and it's definitely his fault. But to go back to the original point, I do, like, all right, so that's like one issue that people I think are often arguing about when they argue about this. Like, I think the real issue is often this thing about like, oh, is there like a qualitative difference between like a Trump and a Biden, for example? And then another issue that people are often talking about is how unique is Trump and Trumpism? Is this really a departure from what came before it? Is it really a continuation of what came before it? And, I would argue that it's not really that much of a departure, that in fact, as bad as some of what we're talking about, so yeah, maybe you disagree about this. So I want to hear your perspective, but here's what I would say about that, right? Like, if you want to think about the difference between, the Trumpist GOP and earlier versions of the Republican Party, honestly, talk about right-wing authoritarianism, as very bad as the worst of what Trump did was, I would say George W. Bush, right, was even worse. That they have like the Patriot Act, the infrastructure of mass surveillance, the indefinite detention, that's like torture. Some of those out, not only were those like maybe the most extreme rollbacks of civil liberties in recent American history, but some of those elements at least actually persisted and even grew stronger after he left office, that, that they were institutionalized and just became part of the bipartisan consensus. And Trump, Trump didn't really, didn't do that, right? I mean, he certainly doubled down on all sorts of horrible things that already existed, and there was certainly some grotesque heights that like the ICE and the border patrols, war on undocumented immigrants got to, But it's even that, right? I mean, ICE is an institution that was created in the Bush administration, right? So so it doesn't actually seem that different to me. Like even the Project 2025 stuff that you were talking about, a lot of that was this kind of agenda of, Koch brothers-ish deregulation, which is like, yeah, this is what these people have stood for forever, right? Like this is Reaganism. So I guess it seems to me that as much as Donald Trump as a person sort of is a kind of cartoon villain, right? In a lot of his affect, right? Like he's just a deeply strange person and is obviously deeply awful. It does seem to me like MAGA strikes me as much more of a branding exercise for something that already existed than this new thing that's like really different. Yeah.
How much time have you spent infiltrating any of those groups?
How much time have I spent infiltrating them? 0 time.
Okay. Yeah, it's I wrote that. A great question. There's a lot to unpack and very valid as well. Especially because if you look at the policy legacy, Obama is almost indiscernible, right? Obama, like in terms of deportations, it was like those are kind of chump numbers. Like we used to call them porter in chief. I mean, you look at the militarization of the police force, you look at the NDAA, you look at repealing posse comitatus, you look at, the war theater, from that standpoint, I 100% agree with you. Where it's different is you have to look at two tracks. One is the progression from a policy standpoint, where the power has been consolidated again with the oligarchy. Okay, so it's just been from Reagan till now, sort of an endless movement that sort of went parabolic around 2013, 14 was a moment, and then there were moments where it continued escalated. So that's been happening regardless. The corporate consolidation has been happening regardless. The people who are working behind the scenes, all of that is true. Now, but this is a new thing. Now, I think it would be a mistake to discount the brand of what he is doing culturally, how he is empowering. It is a populist movement where he is normalizing authoritarianism. He has created a cult, and he is correct. He could go and shoot somebody, and his followers wouldn't care. Okay, so all of the conditions we've seen historically, where most dictators come to power by democratic means. And so if you look at all of this perfect storm happening, including the expansion of executive authority, we see even with the insurrection, Mike Flynn, General Mike Flynn, his brother was in the room in the crisis room when the insurrection was happening. So his brother was determining what the police response was going to be. So you actually, we could have entered a situation where Trump held power. And so we're really entering into a new thing. Plus, I think you might say it started with Jerome Corso and the birther movement, who became a Trump operative. Roger Stone. What's happened is that the electorate's become more black, more brown, more left, and so the normal wedge issues of guns and abortion isn't playing anymore. And then sort of just pandering to the Christian fundamentalists, it's not working anymore. So they found though that this cult of personality is a new tactic, where they don't have to promise any policies to working people. And in fact, they celebrate this corruption. They celebrate complete hegemony of billionaires. Like, they celebrate this, but they've created a cult of personality that is really fucking scary. And I wouldn't sleep. I wouldn't sleep on what could we think that maybe it just happened in the past. We don't think it could happen again here. But I to tell you the truth, they're normalizing killing people, and that met it out with their hair getting killed by. They've actually worked on legislation in Florida to decriminalize people driving into protests with their cars. They've decriminalized that. They're criminalizing, being a trans person. It is they clearly are at war with their right to exist. They've clearly, scapegoated immigrants and Muslims as the reason, white working people aren't, don't have the life they want to have. These are all terrifying developments. And just, Trump is no longer, even like George Bush was still, he was
actually, let me just say one thing though about that comparison, because you talked about Trump's attempts to stay in power after he lost the 2020 election, but I will say one thing that hits me about that analogy when I first started thinking about it is, well, who actually successfully overturned the results of a democratic election is George Bush in 2000, right? Because I think Bush had people around him who had a better understanding of the levers of power than a lot of these sort of minor characters from the late seasons of The Sopranos that Trump often seems to surround himself with. I mean, like you even mentioned in the chapter in your book, I mean, the sort of what to my mind is one of the iconic, funny moments of Trump's attempt to overturn the election, which was the Four Seasons, landscaping, right? I mean, that they like literally couldn't get it together to get the hotel, and they like fucked up and did the landscape, like the Four Seasons landscaping. It says Four Seasons on it, and I guess they didn't realize, until they actually got there. It's like I feel like if they'd had Karl Rove instead of Rudy Giuliani, whoever, they might have at least gotten that right.
And this is a distinction though between, again, like the left. You can't say like there's not just the left and the right in the center. That those mental models don't exist. But let's just contrast, like sort of the centrists and the and what we might broadly call the left or the progressives with the right-wing fascists. They learn from their mistakes. And when that doesn't work, they go back to the drawing board, because they have meetings about this in war rooms with lots of highly paid six-figure consultants who go, okay, how do we, now the Democrats don't do that. The Democrats, when they lost to Trump, there was no autopsy. The progressives, no autopsy. Okay. The right wingers are concerned with one thing and one thing only, and that is power. And that power is used to forward their faction of the ruling class. Okay. So that's the whole ball game. So they go back, and that's why I bring up Project 2025, is because they're thinking, even just look at Grover about Grover Norquist's Wednesday meeting. Have you heard of that?
Oh no, I don't know this.
Yeah. So again, part of this book is to put forth ideas for how leftists, progressives actually can start thinking about building power to actually change the system. Because I introduced a couple ideas like consumerist politics and prefiguratism, where we like fighting for the sake of fighting, but there isn't a whole lot of long-term strategic thinking. We're actually trying to think it through. How are we actually going to end the war, end the system, abolish ICE, defund the police, like all the things we like to do. We rarely think it through and create the long-term strategies. And but the corporate right wingers, they think it through. They think these things through, and you just look at the way they have run the table with federal judges. Trump appointed 300 lobbyists to I mean, he Rex, a fossil fuel executive in the head of the EPA. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, look, I mean, in 2020, I was living in Michigan, and I voted for Joe Biden very unhappily, but like I have, but I always said, just, close your eyes and think about the NLRB, right? That Trump had spent the last 4 years, every time there was an opening, filling the National Labor Relations Board with hardcore union busters. And And you know, and I so I think that like that still seems like a defensible calculation to me. And I think that if I was still in a swing state, I think there's a, you know, decent chance that between now and November I could get myself into a mindset where I would be just about able to drag myself to the polls and pull the lever for Biden and go home and throw up. But I'm also very grateful that I live in California now. And
the California privilege is nice. But here's the thing, like my goal in writing the book is to shift the conversation, because who do you want to vote for is missing the point, in my opinion, missing the point. The point is that we have been so conditioned to be consumers. Our identity is as of a consumer. We've been conditioned that way by capitalism, that all we had to do, the only thing I got to do is show up to vote and then I'm done. And then the myth of the technocracy, like all the smart, you know, people, you know, the Ivy League educated people, they're figuring it out. Elon's going to invent something. No one's coming. The point of this book is that nobody is coming to save us.
No, I loved your line earlier. I don't remember who you quoted. It's, you know, it's never House of Cards. It's always Veep. I'm going to start using that. But yeah, no. I mean, in fact, I think conspiracy theories, to take us back to the larger theme of that chapter, we're talking about, like, I think conspiracy theories to a large extent are, in a weird inverted sense, kind of wishful thinking, that, you know, that you like to think that there's some sort of order to you know, what's going on. Somebody's got a master plan they're smoothly executing. But of course there isn't, and you're obviously right. Nobody is coming to save us. No. And I think that perspective that you had at the end there about seeing, you know, voting as a very, very small part of political activity, and, you know, and having more of a broad strategic vision is incredibly important. So where can people pick up their own copy of this book?
Yeah, so you can go and ask your local bookstore to order it. It is available on Ingram. You can also get it on betherevolution.us. You can find all the places you can get it there. It's unfortunate that it is on sale on Amazon. I wish we didn't have to, but it also tells the story of how Occupy and Bernie helped pave the way to the new American labor movement, the rebirth of American labor. And it tells the story of, you know, Amazon labor union. So that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. Nice. That Jeff Bezos is promoting a book about Amazon labor union, which is kind of fun. But there's also, if you go to betherevolution.us/home, there's also a free bonus chapter based on my article, 27 Reasons Trump Won That Have Nothing to Do with Susan Sarandon. You know, so yeah, but ultimately my hope is, the takeaway is that there aren't like special people out there doing the work. Like, I'm not special. You know, a lot of the time I'm doing this activism I'm on EBT, you know, I'm on food stamps, you know, as a poor person. But you and a small group of friends, absolutely working on a local level, can do amazing things. But we need to get off of, like, you know, I think people like you talking about this is really important. But I think there's also a culture where, like, all I do is like watch my favorite YouTuber. Yeah. And I think his name, I was watching Jason. This is a Revolution.
Jason Miles. Yeah.
Great take. Something I say all the time too. It's just like, I like the Denver Broncos. It's like Yankees and Red Sox. You know, you're LARPing. It's like
I have always said this, that this is not. This isn't politics. This is commentary about politics.
Important.
This is sure, right? But it's important.
No question.
But it's important in an auxiliary way, right? Like, this is ultimately talking about politics isn't politics any more than, you know, ESPN is football, right? Like, this is you know, these are different. These are different activities, and you know, and if people, you know, if stuff like this can give people some, you know, political education or inspiration or etc., that's all great, right? But then, you know, you actually have to, you know, log off and do.
my hope is that when you read this book, when you get to the end, you will feel that you have a place to start, that you understand the opposition, you have some tactics. There's a lot of good tactics in this book. Plus there's 85 QR codes linking to videos about things that happened in the book. So my goal is that you leave feeling like I have a place to start, and I see some other cases of how other people did it. But really, it's about an inside-outside strategy. Whether you're working in the electoral system, whether you're working outside disrupting politicians, the point is get out from behind the keyboard, get some friends together, and go out and raise hell. Because the climate apocalypse is here. Neo-fascism is here, and sitting back and watching it happen is not a viable theory of change.
All right.
Plus,
Thanks
it's good
so much.
medicine. You'll feel good. You'll feel good. It is.
All right.
Go shut down a bank. Good. It's good, clean fun.
All right. Thanks, brother. So everybody check out the book, Be the Revolution, How Occupy Wall Street and the Bernie Sanders Movement Reshaped American Politics by Jay Ponti. Thank you so much for coming on. We are going to go now to the post game for patrons. But I should say we have a link to where you can, from Jeff Bezos, but where you can buy Jay's book. It's actually, I don't know if I ever told you this, for canceling comedians, Zero Books is like they have like as part of the process, like they actually like flagged like a couple of things in publication that's like, oh, do you want to like take another look at this to see if this could be like a legal issue that like, like things that would like open them up to being to being sued. And one of the things the publisher flagged was that I'd said something, I'd used the phrase like nightmarish conditions or something to describe Amazon warehouses. And like, oh, do you want to change that, in case that's like a liability issue. And, I think I did win that fight. We kept that in there because it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I think it'd be like hilarious and amazing if Amazon sued over calling their labor conditions nightmarish. Like the discovery process alone, would surely make this worthwhile.
Yeah. I was gonna mention the discovery process there. So you beat me to it. But yeah, that Jeff Bezos is like my nightmares are actually far worse than anything that I would grew up in, which is maybe true, but yeah, I think that's definitely accurate on your part. So I'm glad you won that fight.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we're going to go to the post game. If you are already a patron, you should have a link to that in your inbox. If you are not, there's really no time like the present. Patreon.com/Ben Burgis. So for $5 a month, get the access to all of the patron exclusive post games on Monday and Thursday night, Discord server, etc., etc. You know the drill. These things are just ways of saying thank you. If you appreciate, for your support, but really the main thing you get is our love and gratitude for helping to keep this going. So patreon.com/Ben Burgis, if you want to go do that now. Otherwise, we will see you in just a minute. Left is best.